date. Before you know it, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dates. And each time you come face to face.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio. Today's guest host is Jesse Turner.
All right, good morning, New Haven. I have two amazing guests with us today. We're going to be talking adult education. I have Diane Claire Kearney and Tom Corbino, and they're experts on adult education in Connecticut. I do want to give a really thank you to Tom Ficklin for allowing us this day and this time to talk about adult eds. I'm going to start us off with asking our guests to introduce themselves, and I'll start off with Larry. We'll start off with you. Tell us who you are, what it is you do, and what's your passion.
Good morning, Jesse, and thank you for this opportunity. Hi, all. My name is Larry Corbino. I'm the director of Bristol Adult Education. I'm also the district supervisor for our English Learners Program, and I'm also the supervisor for Bristol Preparatory Academy, which is the district's alternative high school. I've been involved in education now for over 25 years, and for the last 6 years, I've had the pleasure of directing Bristol Adult Ed. And really, my passion is working with those individuals who struggle in their education, whether it was in my time as a middle school social studies teacher, a high school social studies teacher, or now through adult ed. I'm really passionate about helping everyone find their pathway to success. And one of the things I've learned being involved in adult ed is it's different for everyone. Everyone comes about their education in a different way. And I love the fact that I have the opportunity to help guide them and move them along on that pathway. All
right. Thank you. I guess we're not going to have any cookie cutter education. That seems to be the trend these days. But Diane, could you tell us who you are, what it is you do, and what your passion is?
Absolutely. And again, thank you for having us. This is certainly an opportunity for adult learners to hear more about adult ed. I am Diane Kearney, and I'm the director of Manchester Adult and Continuing Education in Manchester. I also serve on the district equity team to address race and culture. I was an English teacher at one point, taught French, and then I became an administrator. I've been doing adult ed for the last 9 years, and I'm passionate about equity in education. To me, it's important that I use my voice to speak up for those who are most marginalized and for those who feel less empowered to sort of speak up for themselves. So I welcome this opportunity to have this conversation about adult ed because we know a lot of these adult learners do feel marginalized.
So if we think about this thing about adult education, the term family literacy comes from Dr. Denny Taylor. And many years ago at a family literacy conference, I was talking to her, and we were having this conversation, and we were talking about the typical educator talk, raising test scores. And she said, stop raising test scores. And if you want to really raise test scores of children, you need to lift their parents up. And that's part of the deal. If we want to lift communities and we want to lift our public schools, and it seems to me that we have to lift everyone in those communities. And if we want to help children, it probably makes sense to lift those in their families, the adults in their lives. So I'm wondering, Diane, could you tell me who are these people that come to adult education in Connecticut or in Manchester?
So, it's interesting. I know for Manchester anyway, and I know Larry can talk specific. He'll give the global perspective. But the students who come to us really are of varied backgrounds. And for Manchester in particular, about 10% of our population do not have a high school diploma. And that's out of 54,000 people. And the same thing with English language learners, represents about 2%. And that's another 2,000 residents. And our largest population happened to be Latino population, because they do need ESL, and they represent most of our clients anyway, more than 50%. And then the next group would be Black or African American students who come to us. And our average student in Manchester is about 25 years old, but they range from 18 to 88. We just recently had an 88-year-old graduate from Manchester Adult Ed, so that was pretty exciting. So it's a varied group, but again, and also what's important to know is 40% of the adults who don't have a high school diploma in Manchester are unemployed, and so we got to get them in the door. And then I don't know if Larry wants to talk about this.
Sure, Larry, you can fill us in on what's that statewide perspective. Now we got an idea of what's going on in Manchester, who's coming in. The population at the adult education in Manchester seems to be primarily Latino and Black, and people looking for high school diplomas and workplace literacy skills. But what about on the state level?
Well, on the state level, what most people don't realize is that every community in the state of Connecticut is committed to having some type of adult education program. And as we get deeper into the program, we'll talk about the mandated versus the non-mandated programs. But there are adult education programs connected with every single Board of Education program across the state. And services are being offered in over 260 different locations throughout the state. We've got approximately, in Connecticut, 320,000 people, just under 12% of our population, that does not have a high school diploma. And when we talk about a skilled workforce going forward, when we look at all the available jobs at Electric Boat and Pratt & Whitney and all these large manufacturers, this is a concern for all of us, because we have the workforce. When people talk about, I read articles in the paper about not having this workforce. Well, we have the workforce. We just have to work on providing them with the skills and the opportunities that they need in order to fill those high-end jobs. And those are, I always go back and forth between the term jobs and careers. These are careers for these folks. We also have another 120,000 plus immigrants here in Connecticut who don't speak English well. And we also work with those folks, and many of them come to us having advanced degrees from their native country. They're just struggling to read, speak, write, and listen in English. And right now, more than 50% of the folks that we're working with in Bristol are those individuals who are looking to learn English in order to then enter the workforce and become productive members of our community. And many of them, we had a surgeon from Peru come to us this past fall who was just needed to improve his English reading and his writing, and in order to re-enter his former career here in Connecticut. So, I mean, there's programs out there. They're successful. Right now, as last year in 2019, we served over 18,000 adults through our mandated and non-mandated programs.
So if we thought about it, I wanted to come back to this piece. We're not talking about a group of people who are a burden. What we're talking about is a group of people who want to improve their lives, whether they be Black, Latino, whether they be immigrants, whether they be struggling with basic literacy, or whether they have degrees. These are people who want to improve their lives and in essence would be improving the economy of the state. I just want to make sure that we understand we're not talking problem populations. We're talking about people coming to improve themselves and agencies working to provide solutions and to lift them. So I want to ask you, Diane, what is it exactly you do?
What do we do? That's a good question. A lot of them are very nervous about coming back to school. And even the English language learners are also nervous about coming. because they don't know what to expect. It's a whole new world for them. So our priority is to help students become marketable. And once they become marketable, that means they're employable. And if they're employable, then they can gain some financial independence. And so what we want to make sure is that we're doing a couple things at once. We want to give them the education that they come for, but we also want to give them a skill so that when they leave, if they should need to leave and then enter, because we do have that a lot, because life does get in the way, so they may have to take a break, but we always want to make sure that they have a skill. So we're doing, again, two things at once. We want them to be marketable. We want them to be employable. And so we make sure that everybody has a counselor. We make sure that everybody has a case manager. And we also make sure that there is a social worker so that we have fewer interruptions on the way. And so a part of what our program is again, make sure that they get the education that they need, but also have classes where they can get certificates, such as ServSafe, just to name one example. So that's what we do in Manchester. Again, a skill at the academic level and a skill at the working level. They have to have both. And so we pride ourselves in making sure that they're prepared for that and that they have the necessary skill set to be ready to enter the workforce.
So it sounds like a good endeavor. It sounds like something that would not only lift individuals, lift communities, lift our state. I imagine, Larry, the state legislature must be throwing money at your programs. Is that the deal?
Not quite. Funding has been relatively stagnant for the last few years. And unfortunately, as the economy improves or is perceived to be improving, people figure, well, there must not be that many unemployed people. There must not be that many people out there that truly need adult ed services. And unfortunately, we find that that's just not the case. And what happens is we have individuals who come to us who, again, are working, and they're working sometimes 2 or 3 jobs in order to keep a roof over their head, keep food on the table, but they have what we say are jobs. Because they don't have a high school diploma, they're prevented from moving into community colleges or local college programs where they can help better themselves and obtain associate's degree and move forward into careers. So a big part of what we're doing now is we're offering the same as Manchester with regards to some type of certification program so that our students, one, they're working towards their high school diploma, but 2, they're also gaining a skill. In Bristol, we're lucky where we're located, we actually rent space from a local manufacturer. So a few years back, we teamed up with them to offer what we call an Introduction to Manufacturing program. It's a very short 3-month program, but it's a very powerful program that changes the lives of the individuals that go through it. Not funded with state money. It's funded completely with grant money. And we've had some input from the city of Bristol. We've had money from the Department of Labor to help train folks. But then they can move on. They're continuing their education, but they're also able to move into a higher paying, career-orientated position in manufacturing. And we talk about the return on investment. And as an educator, that was a term that I never really threw out all that often. It wasn't something that we think about. Now in adult ed, it becomes a very powerful tool as we look to move our folks forward and get them into these careers that they can help change their lives. And I want to circle back to one thing that you said earlier, Jesse, with regards to people coming to us. The beautiful thing about adult ed is people come and utilize our programs in Bristol, in Manchester, across the state because they want to. They want to better themselves. I get phone calls all the time from folks asking for information about our programs, and I'll tell them about the different programs, different things that we offer. And then inevitably, at the end of the phone call, there's a pause. And then there's the question, well, how much does it cost? And when I can say to them, the services that we offer are free, you can feel a weight. I can't see them through the phone, but I can feel it, the weight that comes off their shoulders, because we're lucky in Connecticut that we've got the funding. Could we do more with more? Absolutely. Would we like additional funding? Absolutely. But we're lucky that the boards of ed throughout the state contribute. The state contributes. We have opportunities to go after federal grants, which I know Diane and I both utilize to help our folks, but we're out there. The opportunities are available, and we're always encouraging folks to visit their local adult ed program.
So if we were thinking about that local piece, isn't there an adult education program in New Haven? Do we have one here?
Oh, yeah, we absolutely do. As a matter of fact, they hosted a big march about a month ago, and it went very well, where we marched to the green, and there were thousands of people in attendance. So it was one opportunity for us to promote adult ed, to sort of, again, uplift and empower those who are feeling disenfranchised to jump on the idea of getting their high school diploma. And so there is a big full-time adult ed program in New Haven, right on El Grasso Boulevard. So it's not far from here. It's on the bus line. They have their own dedicated building, and they offer all of the programs. They have national external, they have a high school option, they have ESL, and they have a great partnership too with the local community college. So absolutely, yes. And
so New Haven is in the house, Bristol's in the house, Manchester's in the house, and if I remember right, Larry, you said every district in the state. So that's, I don't know if it's 159 or 160, but there's quite a few of them.
149, I believe, throughout the state. And either they have their own local adult ed program or they team up. So we have regional programs that exist throughout the state, but there's an opportunity for those individuals who need either to complete their high school diploma or to improve their English language skills across the state. And the big thing, they're free. Yeah. They're free. You don't have to buy books. You don't have to pay for anything. The only thing you'll have to pay for is if you go forward and take the GED assessment. There is a minimal charge. The state supplements the majority of it. It's $125 for the test. We charge some people $13. Many people it's free. So, I mean, the state really does offer great opportunities for our adult learners out there. And so there's no reason not to take advantage of it.
So if we thought about this, it's not so much that it's a program that's free. There's a sweat equity component to this. So if you're an adult who struggles with basic literacy, to be able to commit to months, maybe years of lifting up those literacy skills, of taking a standardized assessment, a GED, learning new workplace skills, to walking into an office in front of others and saying, I need help, and then giving hours and hours, maybe I think you said 3 months on Diana, for one certificate, but we're literally talking about a lot of sweat equity. It isn't that people are taking, they're given. And when we look at it, I said before that you can't lift the children in our communities without lifting the adults. I'll tell you something else. You can't lift industry in Connecticut unless you lift the adults in those communities where that industry is. So I wanted to know about, why is this important, Diane? Why?
Well, it's important because of what the economy is telling us and because what the needs are. I know for Connecticut employers, they can't find qualified workers because 16% of adults don't have a high school diploma or speak English well. And the reality is more than 63% of all U.S. jobs are going to require education beyond high school. So that's why it's important. The other reason I think it's important is, I don't know if you've ever heard of the ALICE report, and that stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. And what that is, it's a report that was conducted by the United Way in 2016. And this means that there are people working but still can't get by. They're living week to week, check to check. They're having to choose which bills to pay and which bills not to pay. And so this is a group of citizens who are living on a bare bones budget, above the poverty line, but below basic costs of living. And if I can just tell you, this accounts for 40% of Connecticut households. 40%. And when you even break it down, that's 66% Latino, 32% white, 63% black, and 32% Asian. We've got to give them hope. We've got to give them an opportunity. And I think in adult ed now, because we bring both pieces together, both the academic plus the skill set to be career ready, it's going to work. And then 38% of state workers are trained at the middle skill level, which is what they need. So we focus on middle skill jobs. We focus on middle skill jobs: healthcare, technology, law enforcement, transportation, manufacturing. I know, again, Larry has a big manufacturing component in Bristol. And those are the fastest growing areas as well. But that's our priority, and we've got to get them ready because a lot of them are not technologically ready, and that is the future.
And this thing about middle skills, middle level skills, and I heard Diane talk about police, manufacturing, and a number of other things. And I don't see these things as being middle skills. They're highly technical skills that require a lot of literacy, a lot of technology, a lot of reading, a lot of writing. If I was to take the carpentry exam, it would take me hours, and I wouldn't pass
You're
it,
right.
even though they'd give me the books and let me look at them. I would struggle over there. Could you tell us a little bit about middle level skills? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, that's where we like to start, folks. But we're also what you have to look at is in my conversations with area employers. Many of them say today, send me an individual who understands that an 8-hour workday means you work 8 hours a day. A 5-day work week means you come to work 5 days a week. You're able to put away your cell phone during that day, and then we'll help train you. So, if you're going to become a police officer, what are the skills that you need to become a police officer? They're gonna train you for that position. Our responsibility is to help elevate their academic skills so that they're reading on a minimum of a high school level, that they can do math at a minimum high school level, algebra and geometry, because that'll allow them to access post-secondary education programs, post-secondary certification programs, and that's where they continue to get that training so that they can move into those middle skilled jobs. But then once they've gotten to that point and they've gotten themselves settled, they're not chasing 3 or 4 different part-time jobs every week in order to pay the rent, then they can look to continue their education or continue their training. And so that's the key is, I always try to tell people, we're the gatekeepers for potentially 300,000 plus individuals in the state of Connecticut. Adult education is the gatekeeper that can help move these folks into careers that can support the skilled jobs that are out there in the state. When we look at how many people they're talking about are going to retire over the next few years, we're going to need these folks, and they need that training that we can provide to help them jumpstart. Education when they were in the K-12 world didn't work for whatever reason. We all learn differently. One of the beautiful things that I've been able to do and really learn is in working with my alternative high school kids who are phenomenal, hardworking individuals who just can't function in the traditional high school model. And when I look at our adult learners, many of them have the same types of issues, the social emotional issues, and they've matured at different levels at different times. And when they come to us, they're ready. They're ready to move forward with their lives. And to see them go through the proudest moment is when I get to hand them diplomas. whether they be a 17 or an 18-year-old or a 78-year-old grandmother who graduated from our program a couple of years ago with their grandkids in the audience. It's a beautiful thing to see.
All right. I just want to remind our listeners, you're listening to 103.5 FM broadcasting live from the downtown New Haven. And we're streaming live on TuneIn Radio and Facebook. And I want to thank Tom Ficklin for allowing me to guest host today. And we're talking adult education today. And it seems to me that we're talking about something that is not only necessary to lift our state, not only necessary to lift our citizens, but probably to lift our children, our families, our communities, our workplace pieces. But I want to come back to that when is the time? Because you said something, Larry and Diane, I know you alluded to it, that there's this phone call, there's this walk in the door, and it's a time when. So when is the right time, Diane, for someone to come to knock on or drop a phone call to the Manchester adult ed people?
Well, that's the easiest question now. You know, I think they just have to do it. And I think that's the hard part. But that's why we make sure that we provide supports so that they don't feel alone, so that they're not scared, so that they're not worried and nervous. And we keep everything confidential. If they don't want their employer to know, we will, you know, we're not going to violate their privacy. But now is the time. And I would love to even just go back to the whole middle skill piece. Middle skill jobs is where there's a shortage. There's a shortage. There's, believe it or not, there's no shortage in getting a degree. There are plenty of people with degrees, but there aren't enough, there are plenty of jobs, right? But there are too many, how am I saying this? There aren't enough jobs to accommodate the amount of people who have degrees, right? For bachelor's degrees, advanced degrees. And the same thing, if you don't have a high school diploma and you're getting a job at McDonald's or a fast food restaurant, there's no shortage there either. The shortage is in the middle. So we want people to take advantage of that now. That's where the need is. That's where the big need is. Again, only 38% of the state workers are trained at the middle skill jobs, but yet there's a need of 48% of Connecticut's labor market. So there's a disconnect. And so we want people to come now, just take the chance. We've got the supports in place for you. There's no doubt about it. And we're going to do two things for you. We're going to get you ready by giving you some sort of a skill, plus get your high school diploma. And again, some of the courses that we offer are ServSafe certification prep, work keys, culinary arts, MS Word certification, math for construction and manufacturing, customer service certificate. And so it's not for naught, because I think a lot of people come in, again, and they want their degree yesterday, and oftentimes that's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It takes time. And so if we know that we're, again, helping them kill two birds with one stone, we're hoping that that is the impetus to stay the course, to just stay involved. And again, I don't know what Bristol's doing, the same sorts of classes from what I understand.
Yes. We have very, very similar programs between Manchester and Bristol. We're very similar types of communities. And, you know, one of the big things to point out is that people who are involved in adult education are passionate about what they do. And that's really important. All educators are passionate about education, but over the years, in my experience, is that we have one of the most dedicated staffs out there who are committed to helping folks achieve whatever it is in life that they want to achieve. And we're lucky to have the resources to provide wraparound services and support services. So like Diane said, we have social workers, we have career counselors. I have a phenomenal transition counselor who works with our students to help move them forward. And as they're getting their education, also helping them explore what it is that they want to do after they graduate. Because many of them have, unfortunately, they haven't stopped to think about that because they've always kind of been told by those around them, well, you're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do that. People have thrown up roadblocks in front of them, and our job is to break down those roadblocks, to listen to them, to help them explore what it is that they really want to do, and then to help guide them along that path. And sometimes we can do it in groups. Sometimes we have to do it one-on-one. And we have that ability in adult ed, and it really is a beautiful thing to see it happen and to help move these folks along.
So we're seeing services for adults that really meets them where they are.
Yes.
Welcomes them.
Yep.
Values them.
Yeah.
And gives them a transition into real skills and real hope. It seems to me you're not the old night school thing that I remember 50 years ago. Do I want to say how old I am or something? Hearing they used to call it night school, and you would come in and you do what they did in high school at night to get a high school diploma. So it's a different world out there. So what is different, Diane? And Larry, you join in as well. What is different between that concept of night school, per se 1960, 1970, versus adult education 2020?
Well, you only had one option in the 60s and 70s. I actually did my dissertation on that. So it's funny you should ask. So you only had an option. It was GED or nothing. And I think it was more one-on-one. Now we have more than one high school option. We have 3 high school options. Plus, if you want, there's even a if you don't speak English, you can opt to take a class in Spanish. If you live in Hartford or New Haven, I'm not sure about all of the towns. Bristol as well, which is awesome. So we have the General Education Development, which is GED. And it's funny because there's also an age factor that plays a role here. So students who are around 25 to 35 tend to take GED. Then there's the National External Diploma Program, and that is one-on-one. The GED is a 4-part test, and they can take one at a time if they want, and that is you go to class for that. And for us, it's 3 hours twice a week. And then NEDP is 1-to-1. And usually the more mature adults like that. Again, that's to build confidence. They don't like the group setting. And that is a 1-to-1 where you have an assessor or an advisor that works with you a couple times a week for an hour or two and that is competency based. And there are 8 competencies. And then there's the credit diploma program, which is usually the younger students who tend to take credit diploma because it mirrors the high school experience where they go from class to class. And again, for us, it's, like on Mondays and Wednesdays and Tuesdays and Thursdays, and each class is about an hour and a half. And it's 4:15 to 7:30 or 9 o'clock if you're taking online. And that's the other difference. We now have an online option. And for students, again, for us, it's free also, Connecticut Virtual High School. Which is an online component for students. And again, depending on what your preference is, where you feel more comfortable, is the course in which you would enroll. And for English language learners, of course, we have that class. And what's different about that also is we have increased levels. So we now have basic, beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then of course offered all over the town, and I know obviously all over the state as well. And then finally we offer citizenship class as well. So those are the courses that we offer, and that's how it's different. And of course we integrate and career components so that it's contextualized. That's the other piece. It's not just let's go over the math, but what does math have to do with career opportunities as well. So it's a true contextual experience.
So we offer a massive amount of services. You offer it for free. You offer it one-on-one, you offer it small group, you offer it online, and it appears to me that you're making a tremendous difference. And so when I'm thinking about what else do we need? What could you use? What if we had a magic bullet and Governor Lamont could come down and say, "Hey, Larry, what do you need? You got it." What would that be?
Well, I think one of the things that's really important, and there's two things here that we always talk about. One is, so the programs that Diane just talked about, those are our mandated programs. That's where we get funding from the district, we get funding from the state. Those are our mandated programs. Mirroring those programs with some of our non-mandated, which is our more advanced skills types of training programs that go beyond the high school diploma, that go beyond learning English, but also gaining nationally accredited certificates along the way. Those are programs that both Diane and I run in our programs, and many adult ed programs run them throughout the state. But those are programs that are non-mandated and require additional funding. So we're constantly going out and trying to acquire additional funding for those programs. What we need is to expand our ability to service students, to provide the educational component, whether it be for high school completion or for the English language skills, as well as move our students forward with specific job training skills programs. So I'll go back to the manufacturing program that we offer in Bristol. That piece is funded completely separate, not funded with state or local dollars, but it allows our students and others in the community, not just our students who are acquiring a high school diploma or English language skills, but also others in the community to go through this training, to acquire these skills, to acquire this certificate, and then go on to fulfill those middle skills jobs that Diane was talking about earlier. That's really important. The other piece, my second point, is we also have those individuals that attended high school for 4 years. However, their skills are still very low. So when they want to go back to school, when they want to go to a local community college and their skills aren't high enough to attend credit-bearing courses, they're kind of caught in that no man's land in between. They have a high school diploma, so they're not eligible for adult ed programs, but yet their skills, their reading level, their math levels aren't high enough for them to enter the college programs. We did have a pilot program a few years back, PA 1240, that helped to try to bridge that gap. But unfortunately, for the most part, those programs are gone. So we do have those individuals, and that concerns me, that we have folks out there that are willing to learn. They want to go back to college. They want to go back for training programs, but they struggle academically. They need a refresher. We always say, use it or lose it. I'm sure if I had to sit down and do the geometry that I learned in high school today, I would struggle to do that because I haven't used it in years. So looking at refresher courses and an upgrade of skills courses for folks, I think that's important too. And we need to take a look at that with that, and then our workforce programs. I know the governor's got their workforce council out there meeting with folks. I challenge them to take a step back and look at some of the adult ed programs, because we're doing it. We're on the ground making it happen. And they need to reach out, I think, to some of us so that we can share our ideas with them and help guide this program forward. I think it's a great effort, but we need to all be working together moving this forward.
So we would be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to every adult educator in the state of Connecticut who is meeting our citizens, our young adults, our 78 and 88-year-old adults at all levels, reaching out and helping them. We would be remiss if we didn't say a shout out to all of those people that make the phone call, walk through the door, that commit to, I think the GED was twice a week, 3 hours per week. I don't know, with multiple part standardized tests. So I want to give out a shout out to them. I want to also remind people, thank you for listening to 103.5 FM New Haven. And I want to ask you, Diane, about this issue of equity. How does this play in this? What if this, the need for this were the children of billionaires? Would it be different?
Oh, just a little bit.
Just wondering.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, I oftentimes wonder, why are there so many people of color in adult education anyway? And let's face it, in my opinion, the K-12 system is not perfect. And I think that we don't talk about equity enough, and we focus only on the majority, which is slowly changing and has changed. I know in Manchester, when I went to school there, it was less than 2%. I won't tell you when that was. And today we're at 65%. So you can't teach without naming equity in what you do, without living, without doing equity, without being equity. It has to be integrated. And so if there's a disconnect in the K-12 system, clearly they're not all going to be successful. And I'm sorry, it's, you know, there is no biological difference, right, between any group of people. But why is it that more people of color are falling through the cracks? Because we're not great at, you know, we're not great at bridging the gap and bridging the disconnects. And as a result, you have more people in adult ed, at least not on the ESL side, but I'm talking about on the high school diploma side. And I think we just need to do a better job with that. And I think the advantage that adult ed has over the K-12 system is because we do experience difference all the time. And so we're living it all the time. And so I think we do a great job in servicing and bridging that gap that really does exist.
So there is a connection between K-12, adult education over there, and inequity probably goes across the board in that sense. And I would talk about it's not so much a gap as an opportunity gap. That's what I meant by, if we were billionaires, well, President Trump or I don't know, Governor Lamont, they could spend any amount of money to get tutoring and services for their children, no problem. Send them to the best of schools. We got private schools that cost above $50,000 per year in this state for children. So that's that concept that we're trying to get at there. And I'm thinking about, lately we've been calling our K-12 school system, school to prison pipeline. That's what we've been calling it. Michelle Alexander's work has called out about that. But there's a piece of adult education where it's going now that I think I talked to you before, Larry, and you said adult education is now even helping those former and corner of the world. Mm-hmm. So could you tell us about that light?
Absolutely. And that's something I think I'm most proud of being a part right now with regards to helping to provide additional services for our returning citizens. So what most folks don't realize is while people are incarcerated, they do have the opportunity to attend classes and attend school. And they do. Many of them do. The problem is once they're released and they're back into their communities, trying to figure out the pathway to continue their education is often a difficult thing. So we've teamed up with folks from Region 1, the superintendent of schools from Region 1, which Region 1 is our prison system. And we've teamed up with them and trying to create a pathway and more about sharing information with the folks, with folks in parole and with folks in probation, so that when individuals are returning to their communities, the folks that are there to assist them know about the adult ed programs in the communities and know about the different opportunities and can reach out and help connect these folks so they can continue their education, so they can move forward with life. We don't have any restrictions in our adult ed programs. We work with anybody and everybody that walks in the door. And this is very, very important across the state. And we'll be rolling this out. And it's basically just gathering information so that folks know what's out there, what's available to them. I'm always amazed when I talk with different groups, and they'll be like, "What, adult ed? What's that? I've heard of that. Is that the knitting class that I took 5 years ago?" And we're no. It's not your knitting class. We do have continuing ed programs, but it's the other side of education that is oftentimes misunderstood, and trying to be sure that we can create this seamless and simple pathway for returning citizens so that they can move forward. And it's just, I'm lucky in my facility. I have a former teacher from the correction facilities, so she's able to help us work with folks and to help create these programs and move them forward.
So it appears, Diane, there's no litmus test for people who come to adult ed. You could be poor, you could be new to the country, you could have little or no literacy skills. All you really need to do is have a dream. Is that right?
That you are so right. That's all you need is a dream, and to feel and a little motivated, and obviously hopeful.
That's the sweat equity.
Right. And you have to trust us. Trust us and trust yourself. And I think if you do that, there's no doubt. And that's what gives us hope. I do want to say that last year in Connecticut, we gave out 1,770 high school diplomas to adults. So that's the hope. And high school graduates average 20% higher earnings than those without. So come on back. And I think if with trust, with motivation, with desire, with determination, come to a judgment-free experience, and we've got a program just for you.
All right. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, New Haven, for listening to 103.5.
Can I jump in real quick? All right, because I want to give a quick testimonial, if I could give that.
All right, we like that.
For adult ed, because 25 years ago, I was new to Connecticut, without a high school diploma, working from part-time, going to a part-time job, just trying to keep the lights on in my house, right? And my wife sat down and spoke with someone, and one day I come home and she tells me, I'm going to get my GED, and then I'm going to go to college. And so she started listing her goals. And I was like, well, then that means I have to do all those things.
That's right.
So
ladies lead.
Yeah, so
Harry.
Right here, adult ed in New Haven, we got our GEDs.
Congratulations. That's great.
Awesome.
And not only that, I went to additional classes, got certified as an accounts payable person, and then after that, computerized accounting. I kept going, right? But then we moved on to Gateway Community College. Wow. We were the first couple who graduated together.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So, and then from there, I got bored with accounting. I got a business degree in accounting. My wife got a business degree in business administration. But I got tired with accounting. I moved on to being certified as an IT consultant, and now I'm here. I'm managing WNHH radio. So
that is amazing.
And managing it well. So people
That's
out
amazing.
there,
so everything is possible.
it's a
Absolutely.
family
Possible.
affair.
And then when we got to adult ed, it's like you said, the passion. The people who are teaching you, who want to see you grow. That was incredible, and it made the difference because it infused confidence into us, and we took off. So just wanted to say that.
That's
That's
a
great.
nice testimony. We need that.
We couldn't end on a better
No.
testimony than that. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, New Haven. Thank you, 103.5 FM. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Larry. Peace, love, happiness, and get into those adult education classes as quick as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah. As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road. Let's camera action, I'm ready to go. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.